Welcome to Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. We have a very special episode for you today. We have a great guest with us, Mr. Rusty Meeks, the current CEO and president of the Arkansas Travelers. I think that's your official title. But man, I'm super excited to have Rusty here today. I know Josh is as well, and we're excited to kind of dive into a little bit about your life, your testimony, and some of the other ministry you do outside of baseball as well. So we're super excited.
Yeah, super excited to learn and know. I'm a basketball guy. Did baseball a little bit. Love coming to Dickey Stevens and going to ball games and all that stuff. But learning from Rusty about his family and all that. But before we get to that, normally Zach tags us on at the end. So what would you say is your top 3 sports movies of all time?
Oh, that's a great question. First, honored to be here. Really appreciate you guys having me on today. Looking forward to this. Sandlot's always up there for me. I'd say Sandlot for sure. I love Cool Runnings.
There we go.
And this is an unpopular one probably, but extremely underrated, is Little Big League. It actually has my all-time favorite sports quote in that movie when they're doing the math scene, if you remember that movie.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen that movie? Little Big League's phenomenal. Remember the Titans is 4.
Zach, how old are you?
3.
I'm 22.
You've never seen Little Big League?
No,
Oh, it's a great
That wasn't
movie.
it part of your childhood development?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, my gosh.
So what's the quote in the movie?
So they go in, and it's probably just because I live this, and so I see it with players, and I didn't understand it at the time, but they go in and they say, okay, well, help me solve this math problem. And he goes, it takes me 4 hours to paint a house, it takes you 6 hours to paint a house. How long for us to do it together? And a player turns to him and goes, what color paint? And it just has nothing to do with the question. And then later on, a guy goes, well, why don't they just buy a house that's already painted? And it's just so great. So because it screams baseball players, not in a bad way, but it's just really funny that they're just focused on the game. And yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
That's awesome.
I get to introduce my kids to it too, which is great too. So still got to be careful with some of those movies.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I didn't realize that. I told my parents, I was like, you let me watch some of this stuff?
100%. Yeah. You said you had girls earlier, so we introduced our girls to Father of the Bride.
Yeah.
There's some stuff in there. I'm what were we thinking showing this? Because they're like, oh, this is exciting. When we start planning the idea of weddings and all this other stuff, I'm like, I don't need this in my life right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, let's watch Father of the Bride 2. And I'm like, no, let's not watch Father of the Bride 2. Let's not do this anymore. So too funny. Go ahead.
So have you seen any of the other Sandlot movies? I know there's like a few of them, but the first one is the best.
Yeah, the first one's the best, and it's just a good. I was determined to show that to my kids, and so I fast forwarded through the parts or whatever. But they have seen Sandlot. They've also seen Cool Runnings. I did the same thing because there's a bad word or two in Cool Runnings, but we got past that because they're just good movies. So.
Yeah, good quality movies. So speaking of your family a little bit, would you mind just telling us a little bit about you, kind of how you got to where you are today, and a little bit about your family as well?
Yeah. Born and raised in Little Rock, went to school at the University of Arkansas. I was a scout for a few years with the Philadelphia Phillies before I got into the minor league side. I always wanted to be on the baseball ops side of things. Did that for 2 years. It was super fun. It's exactly what you think it is. The travel is miserable and just extremely tough on a family. And I met my wife, beautiful wife, Jess, at the time, and she was kind of like, hey, which one you do? which way are you going here? Are you going in the scouting world, or do you want to get out of the travel? And decided to go into the business side. I started as an assistant concessions manager at the Travs, and this is my 15th season. I was assistant concessions manager for a year or two. Worked in the sales side of things, just ticket sales for a year or two. Then I was director of corporate sales and director of merchandise and licensing and retail. Handled all that, player uniforms and player travel, and dealt with all of our retail, those type of things. Became assistant GM, I believe, in 2017 or 18, and then became president right after our season was canceled in COVID. Really appreciated our ownership group at the time throwing me into the fire right after that without having a season. And but to learn, I mean, it was, it truly was God's timing. I know we'll get into that stuff, and super thankful for those opportunities, and it's been a blast. And I've got three little girls, my wife and I, my wife Jess, and then we've got Abigail, Maggie, and Olive, 8, 6, and 2. And so we go to attend Emmanuel Baptist Church. Really involved over there. Have been over there for the last 8 or so years, and kids go to Little Rock Christian. My wife's a part-time teacher over there. Okay. So yeah, we've got our roots here in Little Rock.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't quite understand the I'd say intensity, for lack of a better word, of a baseball season, no matter professional, minor league, of it's day in and day out, showing up, long days. You're not finishing until 9, 10, I mean, depending on your job, but late at night. I'm sure that can take a toll over the season. You have to be really intentional on the time that you're spending with your family and the time that you're spending with the Lord. What does that look like for you on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
Yeah, no, and you got a big taste of it last year and did such a great job for us. But you
Okay, hold on. Most people don't know this. How do y'all know each other?
Well, I was going to dive into this in a second, but we can go ahead and do it right now.
I mean, he just brought it up.
Yeah. I got the grand opportunity. I mentioned it on here before, but to work as a groundskeeping intern for the Travelers this last season. I didn't come in at the beginning of the season. There was a position open for me in like the early middle part of the season. And funny, I don't know if I've told Rusty you all of this story, but man, it was a grind when I came in. I didn't really know what I was walking into. And I mean, when you show up every day, you're in the hot sun working on the field. It's definitely a humbling process, like I was saying earlier. But I remember I had asked the general manager, Sophie, at the time in my interview. I was like, so what does it look like going to church on Sundays? What kind of flexibility do I have to still have time to do other things in my life? And she told me it was pretty, like, it wasn't very flexible. We were going to be working quite a bit. And I was like, fine. But she did mention baseball chapel. And I was like, oh, baseball chapel. That sounds great. I didn't know what that was. And when I came in, I was like, where is this? Like, I need this right now. But we got to a point where all of a sudden I'm like sitting in the front office and Rusty comes in. I hadn't even met you yet, but all of a sudden we're digging into the word. And it was a devotional specifically for the groundskeeping crew. And I sat there, and I don't know if you knew the impact or the immensity of that moment for me, but it was a hard transition moving to a completely new state, completely new job right out of college. And I remember sitting there like, okay, Lord, I know you see me right now. And it wasn't anything spectacular or grand or this or that. It was just diving into the word. You were talking a little bit about what was going on in your life at that point. And man, that was so encouraging to me in the middle of that season, for you to take time, for the head of the operation to take time to talk to the people that are out there, like just grinding every day. And that's not to like put me on a pedestal. Like, it just is a lot of work in the sun. But for you to take the time to do that and to invest in the groundskeeping team really meant a lot to me. So that, I think that speaks volumes to you and just kind of how you like to run the show. But that was such an encouragement to me at the time. And I know it was for the other guys on our team as well. So.
No, man, I did not know that. And that is extremely touching and really appreciate that. Extremely encouraging. Yeah. It's, sometimes I'm making something up on the fly as I'm walking in to do those, just because, but I know it's important for us to meet. So man, that's a blessing to hear that. So I appreciate that. No, I think, look, we work 90-hour weeks when the team's in town, 15-hour days usually, and we're working on weekends. I don't go to church sometimes. Unfortunately, I go to Sunday school, but I can't make service. I got to watch it online because we got a ballpark to open, and it's really hard. I mean, I'll just be honest. Sports, and I say for anyone on this that either want to play sports or get into the sports world, you're gone a lot, and that's not, there's a lot of other jobs where you're gone too, but the sports is a grind. You're outside in the heat, especially in baseball, and it's nights and weekends and holidays. And when you have a family, and it's extremely hard. I mean, I just can't champion my wife enough. She's unbelievable to basically raise 3 girls by herself during the summer. I mean, I'm gone a lot of times. We have 6 games in a row, sometimes 12, as you know. And it's been really hard. So I have to be really intentional with them. And to answer one of your questions about finding time with the Lord, the only time I do that is in the morning. I mean, that's really the only time I can truly do that. And so I'm still waking up, 5:30, even when we get home at 10 or 11, because if I'm going to have time with the Lord, which I have to have every day, and I know that's a priority, that's the only time I can really do it. And then try to be intentional with the girls, go grab lunch with them during the summer, or quick early dinner before I head back to the ballpark. But it's also, on the other side, it's great. Like we get to do such a cool thing in the community where we can truly give back and make an impact. And I truly believe allow the Lord to work. And that may sound crazy in sports, and how we treat others and how we do things and the product we present on the field, the product we present when people walk in, that's always my prayer. And it has been ever, the last 5 or 6 years, just like, Lord, like help people see you in what we do in some way, shape or form. And that gives me the drive to continue to do that. And then I truly, care about our staff and try to encourage them as best as I can. Because I had that for me when I was coming up. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah. And that was very clear, I thought, and just the way that you present yourself and even just the cohesion between staff and everyone at the ballpark. It was an intentional effort to love on the people that are coming through those gates. I can remember we talk a lot about the grind and how it can be challenging at times, but there's also I think Sandlot is a very fitting movie. Like that's very fitting that you enjoy that movie because Sandlot's all about, they play baseball all day, every day. Like 4th of July, when the fireworks are going off, that's the one night that they can play baseball. It's like, we don't think about sit down and take a break. We're thinking about more baseball at that time. And so I had a memory as I was thinking through man, what can we talk about today? Just a brief memory that I want to share. So the Travelers this last season, they make the playoffs, really a great first and second half, and roll through the playoffs. First series, if you don't know how the Texas League and minor league playoffs work, essentially it's 2 best-of-3 series. It's kind of changed over the years, but 2 best-of-3 series. The first series, they get the Springfield Cardinals. They take them to Game 3. They lost the first game. They win the last 2. Then we're coming back and playing the Oakland A's, minor league affiliate is Midland Rockhounds. And they lose the first game. And then was it the last 2 games are at Dickey Stevens? And I remember it got to Game 3. It was packed in there. It was a pretty cool atmosphere. I've been to one playoff game, one major league playoff game in my life, and the atmosphere is just electric in there. But seeing what it was like, and not to minimize it at all, for a minor league team who hadn't won a championship in quite a few years, it was cool to see how the community kind of came out and rallied behind those guys. But I remember I was actually standing right next to you. We had the table ready to go out and put the trophy on afterwards, and I can't even remember who walked it off, but walk-off base hit to win the championship. And I have this super distinct memory of looking over, and you were just it was like an outer body experience for you. You were jumping up and down. Pumped. It was if there was a camera on Rusty, it was showing him as probably the most hype fan in the entire stadium at that moment, at that time. I just thought that was so funny. And then it was quickly back to business. Okay, we got to get on the field.
I was able to enjoy it for just a split second.
Yeah. Jumping up and down. Oh man, that gave me a good laugh. But that was such a cool moment. And that's something where it's kind of like the culmination of a lot of hard work kind of comes together, where we're not the players on the team. You're not really doing anything to actually compete on the field, but it's everything else around it to make the players comfortable, to bring an atmosphere, and get the fans out to the ballpark. That kind of speaks volumes to what you and your team have been able to do. So what is that like for you? I mean, maybe that's not your pinnacle of moments, but we talk about the grind of baseball. Where do you find that joy in baseball as well?
Yeah, I think, look, I've loved baseball my whole life, love everything. I will say this, if you want to work, if you love a sport, don't work in it, because you're not going to watch it. I don't watch baseball, hardly ever, every now and then, but I've grown to love, obviously the people we deal with and my staff, and truly mean that. And then the players, but our fans, I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, I can think of numerous times where I'm exhausted, I'm tired, honestly kind of praying Lord, what do you have me doing here? I'm exhausted. I miss my family. And I'll have something happen in the game where a kid comes up and I'm able to give him a baseball, and it's him and his dad. And I can tell the joy on that little kid's face. And so it just kind of brings it back to, man, I hate to be cliche, but it's truly bigger than baseball or the sports, and to like know that we are offering that type of experience, memories. Because I remember those with my dad. I remember that growing up, and so that's really kind of what, to be honest with you, keeps me going on that stuff is our fan experiences. So
let's go back when you're a little boy. Was where you are now ever your dream?
I always wanted to work in sports. Not necessarily baseball, but I always wanted to work in baseball. I will say my dream was always to be on the baseball side of things. Like I was telling earlier, be a director of player development or a GM of a big league club, which is a lot of people's aspiration. And that changed to the business side. I would say long term, I don't think that's going to be anytime soon, but when the kids are gone, I would love to still be getting on a major league team, but on the business side. Running that side of the business. So it's always been a dream of mine. I grew up bat boying at Ray Winder, the old ballpark here. I stood outside in the parking lot with my dad and caught foul balls. So that's kind of how I grew up, and they've always been a part of the Travelers. They've always been a part of my life. So I did not think I was going to work for the Travs, though. That was not a dream of mine. It was like, I'm going to work for the Travs. I just knew I wanted to work in baseball.
So you're in college. How did you get to become on the scouting crew, or what does that transition look like for anybody who may be interested in what that could be?
It's a lot easier now than it was. And what I mean by that is back then it was still a small, tight group, and video scouting was not around as much as it is now. Physical scouts they're just kind of a dying breed, to be honest with you. There's just not as many of them anymore. And so if you want to get on the scouting side, you really need to go on the video and the analytics side of deal. And I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I'm a huge analytic guy in business. I'm not a huge analytic guy when it comes to the baseball side of things. Sure. But I got started, just knew some people. We were with the Angels at the time. The GM was a friend of ours, and they invited me to go to scouting school. Each team could send 2 people to scouting school. So there were 60 of us, and I was one that represented the Angels. When I was out there, the entire front office got fired when I was out there. And so there went that for me, but I was able to work my way into the Philadelphia Phillies organization and had the state of Arkansas for a couple years and thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, that was a ton of fun. And it was a great experience. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, but it's a grind, and the job security is very different because it's the difference between minor league and major leagues. For those that don't know, I mean, wins in the minor leagues don't matter. Like, I hate to say it, they just don't. They don't affect my job, at least. Sure. But in the major leagues, they do. Sure. It's all wins and losses, right? Ours is revenue generating and how much fans and attendance and those type of things. Most people that come to our games don't even know who we're playing or anybody on our team or what our record is, right? It's an entertainment experience. So it is a little bit different in the minor leagues than, say, a major sport.
And I was going to ask a little bit. So you worked in Arkansas still. You weren't working specifically out in like Pennsylvania. You were just based in Arkansas.
I was in Arizona for a little bit in scouting school, and did some things out there, and then but that was a very short time, and then I've been in Arkansas.
So how did you become a Philadelphia Eagles fan then?
From the Phillies. So I kind of grew up. I don't know. My brother liked the Cowboys, and I was just a punk little brother, so I went against him.
He ruined it for you.
Yeah, he ruined it for me. And then,
or it's a blessing. I don't know.
Yeah, it is now. But I was a fan thick and through. The Chip Kelly days, the bad days of the Eagles. And then when I was with the Phillies, I obviously became a huge sports fan of just kind of Phillies in general. Sure. My wife and I have been up there a few times to see some games, and so that's kind of how I became an Eagles fan. Yeah. And we don't have a team here, so we got the luxury to choose.
Definitely.
Besides the Razorbacks, I guess.
There is freedom to that when you live in a state that doesn't have any professional teams. But want to talk a little bit about some of the ministry you do outside of baseball. If you want to just go ahead and share a little bit of an overview about kind of some of the things that you do outside. I can't remember. Is it through your church? How does all that work?
Yeah, so it's through our church, but it's myself and a really good friend of mine 6 or 7 years ago reached out to me. We started a ministry called Pure Minds. It's a sexual sin ministry, and Lord has just done incredible things through that at Emmanuel and with our church, and even outside of that. I mean, just things he's been able to do with that. And so that's definitely the ministry I think he's put on my heart, and have been very diligent with that as much as I can, and finishing writing some material, which I'm pretty excited about, and kind of do some, I guess, if you want to call it classes or so 12-week courses with that for, people that struggle with that. And I really see that in the sports world. I mean, there's so many temptations in the sports world, and what these guys go through I understand it a little bit more than most because I see it every day with them. But like, I mean, their temptations are pretty crazy. I mean, they're on the road by themselves almost every single night. There's this temptation to get up to the big leagues as quick as they can.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, it's a grind. And so I think that's been somewhere my encouragement has come from as well with our players to just try to be there for them as I can. And they're all way younger than me now. I mean, most of our guys are 21 or 22. Yeah. So but yeah, so that's a ministry involved in and still been involved in other areas in Emmanuel and serving in that way. So it's been a huge blessing. It's a very hard ministry, but it's a very rewarding.
So how did you become a part of that ministry, or how did it come to be?
Yeah. So my friend called me at the time, and it was on his heart to start it. That was obviously something I had struggled with in the past. And he called me and was like, "Hey, I want you to do this and be part of it." And I was like, "Sure." And then he ends up moving in a less than a year. And so we're like still best friends. We talk almost every day. So I joke with him all the time. I'm like, "Gosh, man, you got me in. I blame you for this whole thing." So I got into it just by being kind of his co-leader. He kind of led the first class, and we've used a couple different books out there to kind of guide us, but I've really felt the Lord put on my heart the last year or so to write some material. So I just got done writing a 14-day devotion strictly on that topic. And then, and that's done. And then I'm writing this kind of 12-week course that I am praying that I hope I can get published and that churches can use. It's just kind of because there's not a ton of material for some churches on that stuff. So I'm really passionate about that and excited to see what the Lord does with that. But I will say it's been hard with our job and just kind of the hours we work to give a ton to that ministry during the summer because of the hours I have to work.
Definitely.
So the 14-day devotional you just did, is it accessible or?
Not yet. It will be soon. I'm getting some people that I really trust and respect to look at it just to double check everything and see what they think, give some feedback. And then, I'm going to try to make it as accessible as I can to anybody. So I mean, I just felt like Lord just kind of like, hey, make this a really quick one, 14 days for, and go from there. And so I could not be more unqualified to write it, but it's been extremely encouraging. And my wife and Chris, she's like, you just got to do it. And so
that's awesome.
I did it. And writing this 12-week course, like I said, which I'm really excited about that. And, it'll be good. So ready to get it done. I hope to have that done in July.
I look forward to it.
To dive deeper into that, what's your heart behind that? How do you want to see it grow? But even more so, what have you seen? Why is this so important to you and to where we're at right now as young men and where our society's at right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're walking around with holding my cell phone. I mean, atomic bombs in our pocket, as I like to call it. They can blow our life up in an instance. I also just I would for sure need to verify this, but I think Paul mentions it 36 times. He mentions the word sexual immorality, I believe 36 times in his letters. And I just started praying there's got to be a reason for that, right? There's got to be a reason for that. And I'm not having a seminary or any of that, of course, but just can't help but think it can destroy lives very quickly. There's a reason for that. And we, call to live self-controlled lives. And I've just seen the destruction that it can do and that it almost did to my life. And I really struggled with it before I became a believer. And even when I became a believer in the first part of my marriage, and very open about it. And I think that's important to do. And we just have to talk about it. Men don't want to talk about that stuff. And I think it's important to talk about that and that the reality of it, it's everywhere we go, and we have to be diligent and we have to be very self-controlled, and we have to be obedient and finding time in the God's word. And it's not a trying harder thing. We have to trust more. We got to trust in the promises of the Lord. And so sorry to get on my,
no, but that's what we're asking.
Yeah. But I just, and I didn't always understand that, I get asked all the time in this ministry, guys come to me and it's a very tough, right? Because they're coming with heavy things and they're like, what's the formula? I just want a formula. I'm like, for a while, I just was always like, yeah, dude. And I was like, man, this sounds corny. Y'all know what I'm going to say. The formula is Jesus. That's it. The formula is God's word and him and trust in him. There are a ton of applicable things that you can do. You've got to have accountability. That's the biggest thing is if you're isolated, and I've seen that. And I think that's the other thing that's been my passion, and not just this ministry, but just men's discipleship, because I think as men, we like to get around and talk, but we don't get super deep and we don't get super hardcore about what we do, surface level.
Yeah.
And, let's get really deep and get really honest with ourselves about how we're doing. Let's ask each other those tough questions, because if we're not, who is? And my buddy Rob, who he won't be bothered by me saying his name, he taught me that. And another old pastor of mine, John O'Leary, who is at Fellowship, and he's a pastor down in Louisiana now. They taught me that, just to be honest and accountable, and to ask those tough questions, because that's one of I don't see how men get out of the sexual sin without that. Really. I think that's a tool the Lord uses to really surround yourself with men to help you ask those questions that you can go to, and without judgment and those type of things. And I've just, honestly, that without that, it wouldn't happen in my life.
Yeah. So you say without judgment, and a lot of that conversation, reason men don't do that is the shame aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like to feel that personal shame or pride and everything else, and because you don't see it anywhere else in the world.
No, guilt and shame is, it's a real thing. That men absolutely struggle with, and we know the verses, we know no condemnation, we know all that. It's still just hard. It's hard not to battle with it. That's why you got to have, men that come without that judgment, that come with open arms, truly walking alongside of you, challenging you, encouraging you, not letting you get away with anything necessarily, but in a very loving way. And that's hard to do, but that's all in the scriptures. So it's
rare when you find somebody like yourself who believes the scripture. It's going to sound really wrong. I was in student ministry for 15 years, and inside the church, generally speaking, we believe in the scriptures, but the application of the scriptures are not necessarily on par.
Mm-hmm.
We say no, there's no condemnation, but shame on you for that, and shame on you for that, and shame on you for that. Like, literally, to walk through no condemnation. I don't know that many men in this world have ever experienced that.
Yeah, we preach grace and forgiveness. I'm not sure we actually know how to show that a lot of times, and myself included, Tom. But we've got to, and because what we're doing with us, we got to do that. And so I think you're exactly right. We don't apply it as well as we probably should.
Yeah.
I think in a performance-based world, it can be really difficult. I mean, you talk about the sports world where, especially those guys in the minor leagues, and obviously this is trailing off to like baseball side of it, but even just generally speaking, we all want to perform and have this level of professionalism and have this level of, I'm doing my job in a really proficient way, or I'm walking my Christian walk in a way that's really pleasing to everyone around me, because we don't want to be the issue. We don't want to have all the attention on us and this and that. And I think it can be easy to feel really stuck in that. It's like the wheels are turning and all of a sudden you fall in the mud and all of a sudden your wheels are spinning and you're stuck. And the only way to get out is for someone else to come alongside you and be like, hey man, here we go. We're doing it together. I know for me, that's been a journey that I've gone through as well, of like, it can be really easy to feel isolated and to feel alone in that. And to kind of hit on that aspect of it, what would you say, how would you walk with someone through that process of, you're at that low point, you're stuck in the mud, where do I go from here? How do you walk through that process with someone?
Yeah, it's grace, gentleness for sure, but what I would call hard love. I mean, if a guy is married, and just an example, and continue to do things, at some point you're like, do you want to try to defeat this or not? Like, at some point you have to get serious about your sin. You got to get serious. You got to put accountability software on your phone. You got to stop staying up late at night. You got to quit being isolated, because if you're not, you're going to keep falling into it. So at some point you have to be a little hard, I guess, in a very loving way. And then just the checking and just simple things of just praying for each other. And again, this is all from experiences in my own life where I got out of just guys calling me, checking on me, praying for me. Just, hey man, just thinking about you today, just letting you know, praying for you. Like that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's just simple stuff like that. Like, it's not, I think we overcomplicate it. I think sometimes, on that. And then forgiveness for when you do fall again, and like that grace. And then I think that's where I really see the biggest shame come in. To your point, is when a guy has had some freedom over it, or a lady and victory over that, and they fall again. That's where the shame and guilt can quickly come back in. It's like, man, I was like 2 months without looking at anything, and I'm
Yeah.
back into it, and that's where I think having those people are like, look, man, like, no, like, we're not going to go there again. You're not going to do that. We're going to repent of that. We're going to do all that. And you keep battling, keep being obedient, keep trusting that. And, if we truly believe the scriptures, truly believe what they say, truly believe, the commands in there, then this is an act of obedience of trying to flee from these type of things. And James 5 talks about praying with each other, of course, and talking about, healing and those type of things, but let's pray for each other. Let's actively do that and confessing our sins to one another. So I'm that's just stuff I've been taught in my own life. So I'm just relaying what someone told me, but it's been incredibly awesome to just see, and I hope this is encouraging. And I had somebody tell me this. I said, look, Rusty, the Lord took your greatest weakness and turned it into one of a big strength in your life. And I thought that was extremely encouraging, and just an act of grace and the love that we have in Jesus, that he can take our weaknesses, whatever that may be, any of the sin, and use it as a strength if we, I think, allow that to happen and be obedient to what he's telling us to do. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but
Paul tells us to boast in our weakness. And
100%.
It's funny, we were just talking about that at church on Sunday morning, to remove the pride that we can do things in our own strength, and realize that really to make any kind of effort at something that's bigger than ourselves, we can't do it on our own. We can barely even start pushing that mountain at all. Like, it won't move an inch. But when we bring the Lord into the equation, I think sometimes he puts us in those situations to remind us, you know what, Zach, you can't move that mountain on your own. Like, you can't do that by yourself. You weren't created to do that by yourself. And it's encouraging to see that in someone else's life, but I think you can't fully grasp it unless you've really seen it happen in your own life too. And that's what I want to kind of transition into, of this idea of pain. And we all experience pain in different avenues and different fields. But what was a moment in your life, Rusty, where you felt like the Lord used a season or a time of pain to be able to reveal his glory in the next season or in the next moment?
Yeah, I can think of two. I mean, one is obviously what we just talked about, where my struggle really came to fruition, I'd say the first year of my marriage or so. And I had to, tell my wife what was going on, and I never want to experience that again, and what went through with that. And that was my own doing. That was my own sin. Right. And I think we do get that confused sometimes when we start talking about going through trials. Like, that was my own this stuff I was doing. But the Lord has obviously used that beyond belief, and surrounded me with other people, and so incredibly gracious in that. And that's extremely tough season. And I still struggle with guilt and shame of who I once was before that, of course. And it's easy to sometimes creep that stuff back in. But I think another one is right now. I mean, I'm going through the last year and a half with a whole lot of things. At work, we just sold the team back in last May. We have new ownership. I have 3 little girls, and they're in a critical season, starting to get into that. Very involved in our church, and some things going on with there. And there's been a lot of change in that. And I feel like the Lord's really been teaching me the true definition of trying to learn to be still, and true patience, I think. And that is extremely difficult. And I'm sure I'll never get there. And I know you're like, it's like, that whole thing, don't pray patience. It's like, I'm learning it.
Every opportunity.
But in the goodness of it, though, I mean, it's just been, it's really strengthened my time with the Lord, I feel like. And really, I am in a place where I just like, Lord, I'm trusting you. Whatever this is, I'm trusting you. Whatever you're doing, my career, whatever you're doing, my family, those times I'm tired, I'm fully reliant on him, and the Psalm, I love reading that, as I know everybody does, but just the true dependence that the writer has on God in those Psalms is pretty breathtaking. And we don't always love to pray like that. If you read those prayers and how he prays, and so I've been trying to be more of that, and the Lord's still teaching me a ton on that, and I'm incredibly thankful for it. It's been a very hard 18 months, just with a lot of stuff going on, probably some of the hardest of my life. Not because of that, of any sin, of that sin that I was talking about beforehand, but just with growth and work and kids and family and a lot of different things. But I'm starting to see now what the Lord's been doing, and man, it's pretty, makes you feel kind of idiotic when you start looking back and demanding, Lord, why didn't you give me this and this? And you're like, okay, that's why. Trust in his sovereignty. That's hard to do for me.
Hearing you share it, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being open and transparent. 18 months journey, year before. I had a similar start in marriage too, and I don't want to have to relive that and tell my wife and get caught and all that and the shame that comes from that and working through and the growth. And I don't share that part of my story a lot, but it helps me to relate to coaches and athletes who are going through similar circumstance, situation, isolation, and don't. What's that book? Samson Syndrome talks about HALT, when you're hungry, angry, lazy, or tired. Hungry, angry, lazy, lonely, or tired. Go find other things, because those are triggers for course of sin that you choose or choose not to do. There's a thought in the business world, and some people are talking about it, some people aren't. But as someone who is a leader of an organization of multiple people underneath you and running the business and hospitality and all that you're doing through the Travelers, how do you and you just touched on a little bit, but I want to frame it up more. How do you consider your work as worship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had somebody tell me one time when I was really struggling with this, I was like, man, I'm really having a hard time finding that I'm serving the Lord well by selling t-shirts or hot dogs or whatever it might be. And this was a pastor, and he encouraged me. He's like, look, pray that people will see that, and that they will see Jesus in that act and whatever you're doing. He said, what I mean by that is you're giving an experience to a family or somebody, in the way that you're treating them and the experience you're putting on. You have no idea when the Lord may speak to them. And it was extremely encouraging to me. So I think I really found that way, is like, how can I really just love people? And I fail on that daily, but how can I love people as well as I possibly can, and with grace and humility? And as they walk through that door, if somebody gets mad about a hot dog or whatever, how can I love them well through that, whatever that may look like? And I've failed at that a couple of times this year, to be honest with you. I've been tired or frustrated and those type of things. But that's a great question. I mean, and I do that every day. I think the Lord really changed too a couple of years ago, and with our staff, I think just being able to try to love on them as well as I can, and they love on me. That's one thing I share in our baseball chapels, is like, man, y'all are encouraging me just as much as y'all think I am with you, or whatever. Like, just being able to get in that small setting, just slow down for a second, and we get so busy, especially in our jobs. Just slow down for 30 minutes and talk about that. And the other opportunity I get to do is, like, this weekend, we're having Faith and Family Night. Like, we're playing Christian music the whole weekend. We're having Christian speakers. Like, that's extremely important to me. We will continue to do that. It's our biggest night every year. So we're going to continue to do that, and make that just a huge priority for us, and invite churches out. We're trying to get some pastors to come out and throw the first pitch. Be kind of funny. Spin it on the pastor, but I think that'd be funny. So trying to do that, and we put something on our website to nominate your pastor, and so I think we've got a few lined up this weekend. But things like that we get to do. Man, I don't know. I look at that as like it's a blessing to be able to do that, to be in a public, because we are public, very public, and being in the sports world, and be able to do that, that's awesome.
So what encouragement, so this is a sports podcast, sports coaches, athletes, but from a business leader to business leader, what word of encouragement would you give to someone else who's listening to this, that owns a company, that is higher up in their organization and corporation, to lead from we tell coaches all the time, we don't want coaches who are, we don't want coaches who are a Christian when they decide to be a Christian. We don't want a Christian who's a coach. Mm-hmm. So how would you encourage a business leader in our community to lead from a platform of faith in a world that's not that? Yeah,
I think the first is, it starts with what I believe is being strong in the spiritual disciplines that I believe we're told. That's getting in your word and prayer, spending time with Jesus every day. I think if we're not doing that, daily, I think we're going to struggle in those times. And then you're not going to like it, but pray for boldness. And the Lord's going to give you, I believe, those opportunities to be bold, and we have to be bold. And it's not always fun. It's not always popular. Rarely is it, actually. And but I would just give you that encouragement to just do it, and I think you'll really see the rewards. I think the Lord will really show you favor in that, and you'll really find joy in it. Like, it may be really hard and you may be the only one that finds joy in it, but you're not finding joy in what you're doing in particular, but you find joy in what the Lord is doing.
Sure.
And I think that's my father actually told me that, and it was extremely encouraging to me to kind of do that. So I hope that helps. But
Absolutely,
gives
yeah.
you some encouragement on
Yeah,
that. But I
that's
think
good.
just
Thank you.
and just eventually just you have to be bold and take that leap on that. And I think the other thing is I was so scared when I first started baseball chapel, because we're in Major League Baseball world, public world. Was there going to be any pushback or whatever? And like, I think the first one we did a couple years ago, I had 8 people show up, and I just put it out to the whole staff as like a separate thing. I thought there was gonna be like 1 or 2 people show up, and as the Lord's favor. But what that showed me is like, I didn't need to be as scared as I was about it.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. To speak on that, as someone who was impacted by that, but also newer to the workforce and stepping into different job responsibility than being a college student and this and that. It's encouraging to hear leaders who, not that they're just vulnerable and they tell us everything they've done wrong and this and that, but to hear an example of, hey, you know what? I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to act like you are. And we're going to operate this imperfect business and operate in this imperfect world to continue to serve and love the Lord the best that we can, because it's not about perfection. It's just about progress. And I think when we look at it like that, it's like we're always kind of loading towards being better for the Lord and being better leaders. Yes. But also for the other 80% of people that aren't necessarily in a leadership position, to be good followers too. I don't think we talk about that a lot. As much so well either, of you had to work your way up to be able to be in the elevated position you are now. But what did that look like for you as someone who's working day in and day out? You've been through quite a few seasons in various roles of your time in baseball, but what did it mean to you to be a good follower and to submit to your leadership well as you were working your way up?
Yeah, it was very hard for a little while. I didn't do it well at all starting out. I think very prideful and all those type of things. I think, it looked different at different seasons of my life, and I followed different people. And what I mean by that is like one of the most biggest influences in my life is a gentleman at MLB named Freddie. I mean, he's in Major League Baseball. He's in New York. Like, I don't deal with him all the time, but every now and then I do. And just to he's like one of my biggest mentors in baseball and in my work and what I do. And he calls me and just encourages me. And that's just such an encouragement to me too. So I was like, man, he's taking his time. Like, we don't work together that much. And he's taking his time out of his day to call and encourage me. And so I was able to follow kind of his lead and his boldness, what he was kind of talking about and what he's doing in there. And then my father's always been a huge impact for me. He was involved with the team for a little while on the board, and the way he led, always prayed before any type of staff gathering we had. And just, he was very honest with and very bold with his faith. And I learned that too, because that was really uncomfortable with me for a little while, because I just really cared about what other people thought. I didn't want to make anybody mad. And I could see that it's not that my father didn't care. He's just like, no, like I'm going to pray. Like, this is important to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And so those two gentlemen are the two I can really think of right off the bat that kind of were easy for me to follow and were extremely helpful in my growth, I think, of that.
To speak on the player side of things, I don't know how much you are around the players or anything like that. I got the opportunity to speak with a group of some of the Travelers players a few weeks back, and on Sunday morning they're similar. They don't always get to go to church really in the season. I'm not sure they don't ever get to go to church.
They don't.
And I walk into the room and there's 4 guys who show up and don't know them at all, but they're intentional. If they're being there, they're there for a reason. They could have come to the stadium a little bit later. They could have done this. They could have done that. What does that look like for you? How do you try and encourage your players in the small moments or maybe bigger moments of when you're around them to continue to grind it out through a season. Because I know for me, walking into that room, there was a lot of perspective of, man, these guys, like, they're from all over the country, and all of a sudden they're smack dab in the middle of the United States. And a lot of people, I mean, when I play MLB The Show, the minor leagues are the stepping stones so that I can get to the big leagues. But what kind of encouragement do you give to a player, or what kind of encouragement would you give to a player? Talking about, like, going from, you have a goal, you're working towards something, but the importance of being in the moment right now. What would you say to a player in that situation?
Yeah, I think just continue to, for the believers that are the players, just trying to trust God's plan and timing on that. I know that's extremely hard, and we all know that, but to truly do that, the reason I say that is I have a good example of a player last year, and he won't mind me sharing this. It was Harry Ford, and he's a top prospect in the Mariners organization, incredibly godly man. And he encouraged me so many times. He would just see me, he's like, Rusty, you good? You look tired. He's like, I'm praying for you. And I was like, man, that's so encouraging. I mean, from a player, I mean, he's like a 20-year-old player, top prospect. And then I was vice versa, return the favor. He was wanting to get called up sooner than he did, and those type of things. And so I just, encouragement is just such a big thing. It's such a huge part of my life. So I think that's a really encourage those around you as those players that you can, and then to those players that are wanting to get into the major league side or go into that thing. It's a grind. It takes a long time, and just enjoy the moment, because the Lord may not have you playing in Major League Baseball, but you may be there to make an impact on somebody else. You have no clue.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you're going to come across. I mean, your dream may be to play in the major leagues. My dream was to be in the major leagues on the business side, but that wasn't the Lord's plan currently. So, and I look back now and I'm like, man, why would I have ever wanted to do the major league thing? It's easy to say that now, but I think it's a good learning lesson for me.
Yeah. Harry was such an encouragement to me.
He's awesome.
I only got 1 or 2 conversations with him, but to just watch him go about his process pregame, to watch him just maneuver and operate, he's just full of joy. Like, that dude, day in and day out. Harry, if you're listening, we want you on the show.
We do. You're on our list.
You're on our list of people. We're gonna make it
text
happen.
him when we leave here.
Yeah, I know he's out in Washington, but man, what an encouragement for a player. I mean, you talk about a shining example of, I don't know his story, I don't know where he's come from, what he's been through, but man, I saw him day in and day out. He was one of the first people on the field, top prospect in the Mariners organization, but on his knees, just taking time to spend with the Lord before the game. And I'm sitting there, and my jaw hit the floor. I'm just like, you don't see that very often. You don't see, we talked about it, just taking the time to stop and be like, you know what, Lord, these gifts and abilities that you've given me, I give them back to you, and I want to play for you and give you the glory in where I'm at right now. Super, super cool. I'm a huge Harry Ford fan and always will be. Don't know him personally that well, but excited to as he comes on the show here soon. But
I think players, if you don't mind me saying this real quick, I think players can sometimes get a bad, I don't want to say bad rap, but we see them on TV and they're praying and doing all these other things. Sometimes people may not think it's like serious or whatnot. I can say or tell you that it usually is, because I've seen it. And the reason I see that is there were guys last year, Harry and a few others, that would stop me and pray for me in the clubhouse. Nobody sees that.
Sure.
I mean, that's who they are, right? Nobody sees that. They're not in front of cameras. They're not in front of anybody outside. We're in a clubhouse. And so that's super, super encouraging to me. And the other thing I'll say is, like, watching people like Harry and other guys that we had, that just their talent level at that level, it's not any disrespect to anyone that's in there, but like, they're just a different caliber of player. Like, watching some of these guys play, and I'm sure you could say that with any sport, but like, and this is but like college, like the AA players was the best player on every college team. To put that in perspective. So when you get these guys out here, the level of ball is unbelievable. And then when you get these top prospects, even that level, you're just like, okay, that guy's different. Harry's one of those guys. We had a couple last year as well. And it's just special to watch that. That's another thing I really get to enjoy, is like, man, I get to watch these guys every day. Maybe only for like 30 seconds as I'm walking from one concession stand to another, but I get to watch them and be around them and kind of see their work ethic and the grind that these guys put in. That's encouraging to me, and they don't even know that. I mean, they are there day in and day out, 10 in the morning lifting weights. I mean, they're doing the same thing over and over again, hitting 1,000 balls a day. and just the grind that they do, the work ethic that goes into it. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I mean, that's the other thing. People that want to do this for a living, I mean, it's more than a full-time job. I mean, it's just
1,000
constant.
balls a day.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes, I mean, on days off, what's funny is the Mariners, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Mariners say you can't, they try to tell them to not come in on Mondays. You can't come in on Mondays. I mean, some of them do. And just to see what they're doing. I mean, they're out there. You have a coach come in with a pitching machine, hundreds of ground balls. Catchers out there doing stopping. I mean, it's a constant grind.
Repetition.
But just repetition. But it's super encouraging to me.
Sure.
You know, it's like, man, yeah, we gotta keep doing that every day and keep getting up and trying to just be as best we can be.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that too. A lot of those players, I mean, I don't know what the statistics is of, we've got about a minute left here, but the statistics of actually making it to the big leagues, of everyone has that dream coming in. I saw Logan Evans. He pitched,
Yeah,
he went 8
He made it.
the other day. It was 4-hit ball, gave up 1 run. But there's a few of those guys. I know Troy Taylor last year jumped straight from AA up to
We have a
the
bunch
bigs,
do that.
but yeah, it's cool to see that process because it is a grind day in and day out. Like I sat there and just watched pregame a couple of days as I was just sitting out there enjoying some fresh air, but it's a grind. So yeah, well, thank you so much, Rusty. We really appreciate you being on
100%.
here, taking the time. Rusty took time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. So we are very, very thankful for you and just the time you spent with us and the way that you're able to encourage us as we go here of being a little bit different for Jesus, doing things that maybe aren't traditional in the business world or this or that, but really standing firm in your faith. That's super encouraging. So thank you so much for being here. We're super excited to continue to be rolling out episodes for you. Again, this is the Beyond the Huddle, the Central Arkansas FCA podcast where faith meets competition. We're excited to be